What's up, guys? So Rick here, and we are doing another Everything is a Choice episode, and this one is going to be on the accountability controversy. Now, the thing with this one is people have been struggling with this one, and it doesn't work with every situation, but it can work for a lot of them. So people you know, even yourself, who have been struggling through working on an event that's happened in your life, something that you've created an identity of, from a very negative situation or being abused or something that's happened to you, maybe this tool can help you, and that's the point. Now, to get there, we have to break down a couple pieces to help. In which case, let's talk about something that seems like a very positive thing. Defense mechanisms. We create defense mechanisms to protect ourselves. We use these very clever words to describe our repression and denial towards facing the things that are obviously overwhelming or scary. We try to protect ourselves by repressing our responsibility in situations, making the part of the story that we weren't good in not so bad, and the consequences the only thing that really matters. So you'll notice this when people tell stories. They'll tell stories that they're either the hero or the villain or the victim of the story. And to give you like any kind of example, say you've heard somebody who was at work and their boss is just a jerk. What a jerk they're being. And that person's so mean to them all the time. And then you look at what they're doing and they're slacking off all day. They're not actually doing their job. They're distracting everybody else in the situation, and they're causing more problems than solutions. And so the only part of the story you hear about is, well, this person did this to me, completely leaving out the part where they were creating problems for others. This is the kind of thing that we do where we create our justifications. The reason why it's okay that I did what I did and what somebody else did to me wasn't right. That was messed up. And we want to either be able to say, so I did something to fight back and I'm the hero, or they're always picking on me, and can you relate to people picking on you? I hate bullies. When really you're the one creating a problem, but we keep that part out of the story. So the way that we see ourselves is often something that we've created from a defense mechanism that's there to protect us. And when we tell a story of what we've been through, we naturally make the negative parts that we're responsible for much smaller, and the consequences, the outcome, the main focus of the story. So we alleviate our part naturally as a defense mechanism. So if I don't tell you the full truth of the story, I've created a justification for myself already why that's okay, and that keeps me safe so I can sleep at night knowing that I'm still thinking that I'm a good person, even though, by definition, what I'm doing is omitting or lying. The problem is with this is the lies that we start telling about ourselves to make us feel better start to become our identity. Who we are. Now, if we tell a story that I was in an abusive relationship with somebody who was always fighting with me for years, and all we did was fight and fight and fight, the stories will always lean towards this person creating problems for me, and you should feel bad for me because I was in a dynamic where they just weren't nice. And can you relate to someone not being nice to you? How would that make you feel? And by having that story told that way, they never say, I would walk in and I would pick the fight, or I would never back down and I would always go full steam. I would go right for the throat every single time, and they hated it, so they would fight back at me. We naturally will take that part out and say, what they did to me is the only part of the story that you should hear. Now, there's a reason why we do this. There's a reason why we create those stories to be that way, and it's a natural human instinct to want to belong. We want to be accepted. You don't want to tell a story where you're the piece of crap and people go, God, you're a horrible person, because that would make you alienated and not feel good, and you want to belong. And so we'll take away our part to make us, I'm an innocent bystander in this crazy story I was in, when really, what were you doing there in the first place? But therein lies the problem. How could the thing that's inside of us, that's designed to keep us safe, in itself be the problem? What's so wrong with wanting to be accepted and fit in? Is it really so bad? I just want a little bit of attention once in a while? Really? Choices don't care about that stuff. The results of the lies and justifications that we use to try to make ourselves feel better do end up eating their way out of us, and they start messing with your life because your identity of what you believe a good person is starts to contradict the things that you've created as your self-identity. Now that probably sounds complicated, but if you keep lying or you keep doing stuff to alleviate your responsibility and live in denial, your denial will eventually start to eat you up. And it'll catch you when you start saying, I believe I'm a good person, and then it becomes a tough sentence to say. So how can you take your power back in this one? How can you make that not a problem anymore? How can I go, okay, if that's the situation, what am I supposed to do? What's the main part of this problem to be able to find a solution? What if we could, instead of saying your defense mechanisms are wrong and your justifications are incorrect, what if we could use those to help the situation? Instead of being overwhelmed by the situation or circumstance that happened to us a long time ago, what if we do a crazy thing like add the responsibility and accountability for your part to the situation in a much heavier way? And I think what we'll do is our defense mechanism, the more that it's your fault, the less you're going to make it happening to you, and the more you'll say, I learned a lesson the hard way. It changes the impact on your identity because you're no longer a victim. Now you're responsible, and that makes it so that instead of going, oh my gosh, you should feel sorry for me, you go, whew, messed that one up, learned that one the hard way. And your identity no longer becomes crippling, now it becomes a life lesson. So what's the formula for this so we can break this thing down? Well, if you have the situation itself, and of course we practice awareness as our number one thing. So let's put those together. If we've got situation plus awareness, it creates situational awareness. Now with situational awareness, we've got the situation plus what happened. And then we're going to go ahead and minus blame. Multiply it by accountability and responsibility. And this should equal freedom and or a new identity. So let's work through that. The action that you're going to take for this is start writing this down. Write down a situation that's defined who you are. This could be a terrible thing that happened in college, something when you were growing up, and this doesn't apply to everything. If you were just a 5-year-old kid and something happened, that's a very different situation. But if you're an adult and you made a mistake and you blame others for the accountability of what's happened in that moment, write that situation down for the parts that are your fault. What were you doing there? So write down the situation and physically write it down. Don't type it, don't talk to texts, don't speak it in notes. Write it out. Something happens when you write that changes the way that it feels inside of us. And so write down the situation as if more of it was your fault for what happened, and be truly honest. And you don't have to share this online. You don't have to post it to anybody. You don't have to send it to me. Just write it for yourself so you can see, what if more of it was on me? What if I really was the slacker and I could see why they were upset? What if I was distracting everybody? What if I had no business being there? What if I drank too much? What if I stayed too long? The more that you add in any situation that it's your fault, it no longer becomes something that happened to you, and now it becomes a life lesson for you. This means now you're going to take that natural defense mechanism and you take the parts of it that are trying to protect us, and what it does, instead of saying that you're a victim in the situation, that things have happened to you, you now find justifications that it's not as big of a deal as I was making it, and I definitely learned a lesson the hard way on that one. Don't go down dark alleys. Don't date assholes. Stay away from crazy people. Sometimes you learn that the opportunities to grow are all around you, but our level of awareness was always so low, not only with what the situation was itself, but our internal interpretation of what the moments are. This takes all your power away from you, and it gives it to the situation itself. You blame other things, you blame somebody else, and we've talked about when you blame, you lose your power. You'll see that you're the one in control. of the major parts of the story. And doing this will naturally make your stubbornness push you past the negative event instead of creating a new identity around it. Now, we are working with a lot of students right now on this concept, and I would love to hear your ideas on this, on how you could see this working for you, or how it doesn't work for you. It obviously doesn't work in every situation, but I'd say a vast majority of people are struggling with things they're trying to get past. And maybe this tool is the thing that gives you your power and control back to say, I'm the one who made a situation a situation. Or I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It didn't happen to me. I should never have been there in the first place. I learned, don't go in places like that. Some of these things, I'm not saying are your fault, but our natural defenses are, when something is your fault, you make it less of a big deal. Try doing it the other way and take that defense that you create and use it for you, not necessarily to repress and volcano everything down until you explode into a crazy fireworks show of destroying everything around you. All right, so just remember that all of these things are awareness around us. Keep practicing your awareness. Practice some of the formulas that we put together. And remember that no matter what negativity has happened to your life, everything is a choice. All right, here we go. Filming, man. All right, we're gonna go back. All right, now do this part.